Hello there, Ramblers, and welcome to another instalment of Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and indeed all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming, and technology. Hope you're all doing well out there. Over the past week here in the UK, it has been a little bit cooler than it has been over the past few months, and also a little bit wetter, with a couple of rain showers in the evenings, which have been very welcome indeed, following on from the very hot and dry summer that we've had. But I assume that you're not here to learn about the weather here in my little part of the UK. You're probably more interested in the wider computing and gaming scene, as mentioned every single week in my opening blurb. So on that note, I thought I would give a very big shout out to the attendees of the Kickstart UK Amiga Expo, which is happening right now in Derby. And that's August the 7th and the 8th. Of course, it's a bit too late for me to be advertising this to you, and that indeed isn't the case. I just wanted to say a very big hello to all of the regulars there, because as you may know, I have attended this show a couple of times in the past, the first 2 years, in fact. The first year just as an attendee, I just kind of showed up just to kind of meet up with some people I've been chatting with online. Had a wonderful time and drank far too much. And I think the after party is probably the most legendary part of the show for me. But last year, I actually made a video about it as well. So if you were unable to attend, this, I think, gives a pretty good impression of what the show's all about. It's kind of a vlog-style thing covering my own experience, setting up my own table, and my tongue-in-cheek Atari community outreach project. Which was, of course, an attempt to mend some bridges and repair some old wounds between the Atari ST and Commodore Amiga communities, which in the past have been at odds with each other, have been kind of fierce rivals. But I think in this day and age, as we all approach old age, it's best to kind of just to embrace our shared interests and our shared heritage and our shared DNA. And as you'll see if you do watch the video, everyone was very much on board with that message, and a wonderful bunch of people who helped me to have a wonderful weekend. And of course, this show is organised by a very good friend of mine called Ravi, who you may know from the Retro Hour podcast. I have appeared on his podcast a couple of times in the past. And I just wanted to also wish Ravi the best with the show as well. Oh, by the way, if you're looking at if you're watching this video on YouTube, which is unlikely if you're driving to Kickstart at the moment, please don't watch YouTube and drive. But you may notice my rather strange recommendations down the side of the screen. I discovered this fitness channel called Renaissance Periodization, this guy called Dr. Mike, and he's a bodybuilder, and he talks a lot about bodybuilding and stuff, but also talks about CrossFit and other fitness stuff, nutrition, that kind of thing. I've really got into his channel just lately, and it seems I watched a few of his videos logged into this account, and now it is just recommending all of them to me, and his rather interesting thumbnail. So that's why that's there. I know I do sometimes get comments about that kind of thing. Also, there is a new Bobby Fingers video this year. I say this year, this week, but also this year is very apt because he does only seem to release a video once every year or so. But I'll talk about that in my videos of the week later on. And this Kickstart 02 vlog will also be one of my videos of the week this week. So just a couple of spoilers there. I do have some other bits and pieces for you as well. That is the Kickstart Amiga Expo. A big hello to everyone who is there, or indeed making their way there as they listen to this. Or perhaps if you've attended the show and you're on your way home, I hope you had a good show. If you're a YouTuber and you have made a video about it, by the way, please do let me know, because I would like to share some of ththose videos. I'd like to watch them myself and see what I missed out on, but also kind of share them as well in next week's Ramble if I can. Give you a bit of send some traffic to your videos, and also see what it was all about for myself. Some really great guests, some great speakers here, as always. Some of the usual characters like Mike Daly and Stu Cambridge, of course. Mike Daly of Lemmings and Grand Theft Auto fame, Stu from Sensible Software, Cannon Fodder, Sensible Soccer, that kind of thing. Simon Phipps, I believe he's been a speaker there before. But we've got Andy Davidson, one of the creators of Worms. We've got Steve Hammond, Alistair Brimble, Brian Watson, Beth Richards, Billy Allison, Tony Warrener. All really big names, from the likes of Sensible Software, Team 17, and, all sorts of other DMA design, other, Commodore and Amiga related brands. So fantastic show, very ably put together by Ravi. And there is some breaking news as well on that front. Just before we move on with the stories for this week, I have been sent a photo from my very good friend Derek of Flame Lily IT fame. Of course, he has his own web shop selling, all kinds of add-ons and upgrades and accelerators and things for these old machines. So please do go and check that out. But in my absence, he has sent me a photo, and he is going to be keeping me up to date over the course of the weekend. This is him with my very good friend Pillock, aka Pure Amiga, who offers his own Amiga repair and upgrade and recapping services. And I believe that chap in the background looks very much like Rob Smith as well, who, if you remember, and who you will see if you watch my video from last year, had the table next to me, and he had that infernal disco floppy disk cleaning machine that was running constantly all weekend. It's become a bit of an urban legend and a bit of a running gag between us, and I am very glad that I'm not there, at least to experience whatever torture device he's come up with for this year's show. No, actually, I'm actually quite sad that I am missing out. But yeah, hope you all have a wonderful time at Kickstart. And with that being what it is, I guess it's time we get on with the stories for this week's Ramble. But not, of course, without first taking a very brief diversion to say thank you to our sponsor, PCBWay.com. That's right, it's one of those weeks when I have bills to pay. But joking aside, PCBWay, of course, have been offering PCB fabrication services to this community for over 12 years now, believe it or not. And in that time, they have built up quite the enviable reputation for fast turnaround times, excellent quality, and top-notch customer service. And I do speak from experience, because long before they approached me with this sponsorship offer, a couple of years ago now, I was indeed a very happy personal customer of theirs. And they have proven to be excellent to work with over the years as well, just as a personal aside. But they're not paying me to tell you that. What they are paying me to tell you about are their other offerings, their other services, which include the likes of injection molding, 3D printing, CNC machining, and sheet metal fabrication, among many others. So, if any of those sound like requirements for your next project, please do check out the link to PCBWay down in the description below. And once more, thank you to PCBWay for all of your support for both of my YouTube channels and indeed the wider maker and electronics communities at large. Top work. And so, with that third and indeed latest iteration of the Kickstart Amiga show being very firmly at the forefront of my mind this week, I thought I would lead with a story that has not only a very strong connection indeed to the Amiga itself, being a game that started life on the Amiga and was indeed a bit of a killer app, an exclusive, and I know it's a word that is overused here on YouTube, but iconic, it's a word I'm going to use. But also, the creator of said game, and indeed this latest release, is also speaking. He's giving a talk at Kickstart, I think pretty much as I sit here and record this, and I am very envious that I'm missing out on that talk as well, because the talks at Kickstart are always brilliant. They are some proper industry veterans, and they're always very entertaining and very educational. So, hopefully, Ravi, hopefully you are recording the talks this year, and you are going to be putting them online somewhere, because I would quite like to catch up on those. But anyway, that is all a distraction from the main headline. Now, this is a game that was released 30 years ago, all the way back in 1996. You don't need to be brilliant at maths to work that out, but I am actually pretty terrible by my own admission, but even I managed to work that one out. And it was released by a chap called Andy Davidson, who is a bit of an industry legend, I think it's fair to say, because he created Worms. Now, if you're not familiar with Worms, I am going to attempt to define it here, although that has proven to be somewhat of a mistake in previous takes. I think I'm on about take 11 or 12 of this story by this point, but I'm still going to soldier on. So Worms is a side-on 2D combat game. You've got the titular worm characters, just a few pixels tall in the original game, but still full of character due to the way that they were animated, and also the various voice packs that you could choose for those characters. So yeah, those lovely squeaky comical voices. But the game itself, the actual gameplay, is kind of what solidified it as being, that historical offering that it was. A 2D combat game. You've got various different bits of terrain, parallax scrolling, very detailed, very kind of comical themes to those, and the selection of weapons as well. Stuff like your garden variety bazookas, homing missiles, Uzis, grenades, cluster bombs, that kind of thing. But also some rather interesting offerings, which I think went on to define the series. Stuff like the banana bomb, the holy hand grenade, the concrete donkey, the sheep, the super sheep, and many more that kind of got added over the years as well. Airstrikes and things. We've got stuff like the blowtorch and the ninja rope and the jetpack. It was quite a simple formula, I think, at its heart, but it was one that had just the right kind of elements and just the right balance to kind of lead to some very, very interesting and emergent gameplay and a huge amount of replay value as well. And I will say, in that original game, as an Atari ST owner, and this isn't something that I will admit very often, but I was very, very envious of my neighbour's Amiga at the time. I actually used to go over his house fairly regularly to play Worms with him, and, he'd come to my house and play games on the ST as well. But, we didn't get Worms on the ST, and that is sad. I think it's to do with the hardware scrolling and stuff. Probably could have had it on the STE. Anyway. Another diversion, because to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the release of Worms, finally getting to the point, as I sometimes do, Andy has put together this rather nice website, worm.net, Wormnet, the future of yesterday's Worms today, or whenever is good for you. Do like that tagline. But the website isn't the focus, of course. It's what he has put together, available as a download on here for Worms fans all over the world. And I will say, this is for the original release as well on the Amiga. So that is very, very cool in itself. So we have the 30th anniversary Worms logo here, and we have an expansion pack, a remix album, and Worms the Director's Cut, the online tool, being the only 3 pages here. So the expansion pack has 40 plus levels, 50 plus sample packs, 10 DIY terrains, and a whole mess of new teams, which we'll talk about in a second. We've got 9 brand new pieces of music inspired by Bjorn Lind's original Worms theme, created by some of our favourite artists. The Worms music, in and of itself, again, I'm going to use the word iconic. And again, I don't think anyone can argue with that. One of the greatest bits of, one of the greatest game themes, I think, of all time. We've also got that online tool as well, which allows you to create your own dual layer maps, mountain sets, DIY terrains and teams, all from your web browser. It's WordPress 2.0. Of course, WordPress being that kind of configuration, modding, whatever you want to call it, tool from back in the day. But now, with the convenience of being browser-based. So, first up, we have that 30th anniversary expansion pack, a specially curated selection of maps and DIY terrain, along with over 50 sample sets, lovingly converted from Worms 2, Armageddon and World Party, all to celebrate 3 decades of wormery. And I think, again, it is fair to say Worms 2, Worms Armageddon and Worms World Party they're the OGs of the 2D Worms world. Worms 2, certainly for me, was the one that I played the most on the PC back in the day. It was basically the same core gameplay as the original game, but it did have higher resolution graphics and a really nice kind of hand-drawn style to it as well. Did enjoy that one a lot. And it's nice to see that some of the assets from those games have now been professionally extracted and made available as official offerings for the original game on the Amiga as well. So that's cool to see. Backported, I guess. This website was last updated today, in fact, so I also need to say a big thank you to Manimo over on my Discord for alerting me to this hot-off-the-press Worms news. Well, you can download the entire thing if you want in zip or LHA format. Of course, LHA being native to the Amiga, which makes life very, very easy indeed. If you just want the maps and the DIYs, you can download that as well. You can spin the wheel of random maps. So on the landscape generator, you can right-click, type in custom, and then press enter, and Worms DC will randomly select a custom map. Clicking the left mouse button will pick another map at random. So that's cool. And if you just want to pick and choose between the different voice samples samples, you can also do that from the website as well. So we've got the Worms 2 sound effects, the Worms World Party sound effects, all the different languages, of course, that it's supported over the years, and some of the, or indeed all of the iconic sound packs like the Angry Scots, the Brummies, the Cyber Worms, and stuff like Smooth Operator, Soul Man, Stiff Upper. I remember playing with these for hours back in the day. Lots of happy memories, and the Cockney Wide Boys as well, among many, many others. We've got the class of 2026, which are some fresh faces to join your list of teams. So they are indeed team names. Of course, I remember the team names being very amusing in Worms and various Worms games over the years. So that's also cool to see. We also have on WormNet the remix project that I mentioned. These are remixes of the Worms main theme. We've got the Electro Clash remix by Larry T, the Cyber Billy remix by Sunny E, the John B remix, and quite a few others as well. There's also a mod file, so they're all MP3s, but this is a mod file of the Matt Frequencies Worms title theme remix as well that you can download and also play with your mod player of choice on the Amiga. And finally, there is this tool, which I'm not going to demonstrate here, but basically allows you to edit and modify all sorts of different aspects of Worms, indeed. This was created by Losso4759, and it is intended to create or modify custom levels, mountains, or landscapes for Worms DC for the Amiga, start from scratch, or use a template. And as mentioned, it's all browser-based, which is wonderful. So yeah, the headline here, and what a wonderful story to kick us off, the 30th anniversary of Worms. We've got this wonderful and quite extensive expansion pack for the 30th anniversary from Andy Davidson, one of the creators of Worms, or indeed the creator of Worms back in the day. And indeed, he is also giving a talk at Kickstart. And that is, what a great start. What a great start to this week's Ramble. My next story is all about another 30th anniversary taking place in the gaming world, and indeed, another free and rather substantial release this week to mark said anniversary. However, I think that's where the comparisons need to stop, because this game couldn't be any more different from the one that I was just talking about. You see, all the way back in 1996, while Amiga owners were quite rightly enjoying their brand new and shiny 2D turn-based, sprite-based invertebrate combat simulator, PC owners like myself were getting a very, very different experience indeed, with one of the most important 3D releases, I believe, of all time. Perhaps the first game to really push those early 3D accelerator cards like the 3DFX Voodoo to their absolute limits, and also the follow-up to Doom, the greatest game ever made. Shout out to the Doom Shrine behind me, my collection of Doom-related stuff, and indeed I also have a rather nice little Doom chaser connected to this story that I'm going to talk about afterwards. Anyway, if you haven't worked it out yet, I'm talking about Quake, and QuakeCon is happening this week. QuakeCon is the annual conference to do with id Software and Quake and, of course, all of that related stuff. And, of course, this also comes off the back of some recent news that was rather unfortunate as far as id Software was concerned, with some rather substantial job losses and people inside the company saying that it could be the death of their engine technology and perhaps future releases and stuff. So, a bit of a double-edged sword, I guess. But let's celebrate the wins while we can and talk about this release for Quake's 30th anniversary. This story is over on Polygon.com. 30 years later, Quake gets a major update with loads of new content. Quake is still giving players new reasons to check the game out 30 years after launch. Now, this is a free release, as I mentioned, for the Night Dive remaster of Quake that came out in 2021 on various different platforms. I enjoyed that a lot at the time. I played through the entire thing, all the different expansions, and indeed the new episode that they'd made for that release, which was absolutely fantastic. And this new episode that has been released this week is made by Machine Games, the same people behind that one, and the people who, of course, are responsible for the Wolfenstein franchise nowadays, if indeed they still exist in any form after recent news. Again, not to dwell on that, this story over on Polygon, again by Thomas Franzese, No new Quake game was announced to celebrate the franchise's 30th anniversary at this year's QuakeCon, but the beloved first-person shooter got a substantial update to mark the occasion. Developer Machine Games has released an entirely new Quake episode, and it's available across all versions of the game's 2021 remaster. And from memory, I believe that was released on the PC, the Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. I think it was on all of the platforms at the time. Titled Dawn of the Machine, just getting back to the story, the new episode comes from a studio best known for its work on the rebooted Wolfenstein games and 2023's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That's one I wanted to get around to playing at some point. It previously worked alongside id Software and Night Dive Studios to make new episodes for the remaster, and did the same again for this 30th anniversary milestone. Dawn of the Machine is built on the core of the 30-year-old game, but adds new enemy types and new weapons like the Super Axe and Laser Cannon. The 19-level episode is also designed to be replayed, as players can collect runes to unlock new paths on subsequent playthroughs and keep previously acquired health and ammo upgrades. The update that adds Dawn of the Machine also adds a vault with behind-the-scenes assets from Quake's development, more achievements, and a cheats menu. On the multiplayer side of things, there's one new deathmatch map. This Quake announcement comes at a moment when the future of id Software and Machine Games seems uncertain under Xbox. And so on and so forth. Of course, I've already talked about that. And there is a trailer for this over on YouTube as well, which of course I will link down below. It's only a minute long, so for the benefit of those of you watching this on YouTube, I'm just going to let that run while I waffle on about Quake. So we've got some nice footage here from the original game. Obviously, this is from the Night Dive remaster, but the original levels. And this is a brand new episode from Machine Games in collaboration with id Software. Now look at these maps, look at the sheer scale of some of this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we could have only dreamed of back in the day under the original Quake engine. I don't think this would have been technically possible at all, but my goodness, I'm getting almost like Doom 2016 vibes from some of these landscapes with these big castles and things. I know that's kind of a theme that started with Quake back in 1996. But yeah, all these medieval villages and things. We've got, this is the original boss from the first episode. Looks like we get to fight some of those again. Oh, yep. And we've got Shub Niggurath, wasn't it? That was the kind of the end boss from the original game. Yeah, very brief glimpse into that. But that is indeed a free update. And if you own the Night Dive remaster, all you need to do is fire that up and that will download, and indeed that did happen on my PC first thing this morning. So I'm going to enjoy playing that over the weekend. I know I quite often say that I'm going to be playing games and then don't get around to it, but in this case it's Quake. I'm going to. I also mentioned that I had a bit of a Doom chaser for you as well. So let's talk about that, because of course QuakeCon isn't just about Quake. They also talk about Doom and indeed id Software's other games over the years as well. And this is the big Doom-related announcement from this week. The Doom Collection is now available on the Evercade. So if you own an Evercade console, either the original handheld or their TV-based console, or indeed one of the variants they've released over the years, very important for game preservation, I think, with their cartridge-based releases. No online component, no DRM or anything like that. You buy the game, you get the cartridge, and then you can play it on your console forever, which is quite cool, although of course it is tied into their proprietary platform as well, so there is that aspect to consider. But highly collectible individual numbered releases for the Evercade consoles. I was very much addicted to them at one point and actually ended up having to sell my Evercade as a result. And if that doesn't, if that doesn't speak volumes about the addictive nature of it, I don't know what does. Anyway, that's just my personality and me trying to protect my wallet, but. Yeah, 2 games and 6 amazing map packs released on one cartridge for the Evercade consoles. We've got the original Doom, of course. This supports 1 to 4 players. We've got Doom 2 as well, of course. We've got the master levels for Doom 2. We've got TNT Evolution, the Plutonia Experiment, No Rest for the Living. That was the new episode, wasn't it, that they made with one of the remasters back in the day. We've got Sigil again, which was John Romero's rather excellent new episode that he released a few years ago for Doom's 25th anniversary, in fact. We've got Sigil 2, and we have Doom, the Deathmatch pack as well. And it looks like this supports split-screen multiplayer. which is very cool to see in a Doom release. I remember, was it the Xbox 360, the Xbox Live Arcade release of Doom that had that feature? Bit weird to see in a Doom game, but actually works surprisingly well. And of course, at the bottom of the page, they are also advertising their Duke Nukem collections. They've got 2 now. Wow, they've got, Time to Kill, Land of the Babes, and Duke Nukem Advance. That was another very recent release from what I remember. And their Tomb Raider collection as well. So that is that. We have a 30th anniversary brand new shiny episode for Quake from Machine Games, and it sounds like that has some very interesting elements indeed. Those new paths that are unlocked based on how you play the game, adding some rather nice replay value to that. I'm very much looking forward to getting stuck into that. And if you are an Evercade owner, or you are thinking of picking one up, there's also a new Doom collection for the Evercade. I suppose, even though I no longer own one, I'm probably going to have to pick one of those up for the Doom Shrine. One of my longest running and indeed dearest obsessions in the gaming world, in addition to Doom and of course Quake, which I just talked about, is Atari. As you probably know if you've been following my YouTube output for any length of time. And I make no secret of the fact that I'm actually a rather huge fan of the latest iteration of that brand, headed up by Wade Rosen and born out of the ashes of Infogrames, that French game developer and publisher from the 80s and the 90s. They have made rather a lot of rather wise moves over the past few years. Stuff like the Atari Plus platform, which I have reviewed on the channel, the 2600 and 7800 Plus consoles that play all those original cartridges. Incredibly well designed, well thought out and well made consoles, and quite successful for the company. And also some of their acquisitions, stuff like Night Dive. Of course, I was just talking about Quake, that remaster from 2021. Night Dive, the company that made that, is part of Atari. They were acquired a few years ago. Digital Eclipse as well, who do quite similar work, and some of those historic collections, the 50th anniversary collection, the Intellivision stuff. Intellivision, indeed, as a brand, is also now owned by Atari. Stuff like Moby Games as well. They just seem to be making all sorts of very wise business moves and then not completely and utterly destroying the companies that they acquire and just letting them get on with their great work, which I think is unusual in this day and age. And it turns out it is a strategy that has served them very well indeed in the past financial year, because there is a story over on Reuters.com. Once bankrupt Atari returns to profit with decade-high revenue. It says once bankrupt. I think the Atari's been bankrupt a fair few times over the years. But anyway, a decade-high revenue is the headline here. So, August the 3rd, Reuters, a video game developer Atari, reported annual revenue of 56 million euros. That's $65 million on Monday, not to be sniffed at. Its highest in more than a decade, as a strategy built on reviving old franchises and buying up studios pulled the Paris-based company back into profit. Atari, the arcade and console pioneer that filed for bankruptcy protection just over a decade ago, is riding a broader industry shift toward mining back catalogues and nostalgia-driven franchises instead of costly new blockbusters, a trend it has embraced through a wave of studio and IP acquisitions over the past year. What about the new Bubsy? I mean, surely that counts as a new blockbuster, doesn't it? I never did check that out. Anyway, over the past year, Atari raised its stake in Swedish video game publisher Thunderful to 97%, bought Crossy Road maker Hipster Whale for $29.3 million. Goodness. And the IP rights to 5 Ubisoft titles, including Child of Eden and Grow Home. CEO Wade Rosen said Atari was reaching operational profitability for the first time in several years, and that he was confident it would continue to generate sustainable growth. Atari's games revenue rose 67.7% to 46.1 million euros, while hardware revenue jumped 83% to 7.3 million euros. Current operating income turned positive at 0.9 million euros versus a 0.8 million euro loss a year ago, excluding Thunderful. That's interesting. Net income excluding Thunderful was 0.1 million euros, compared with a 12.6 million euro loss last year. Cash flow from operations was 11 million euros. So, yes, quite substantial losses last year across the board from Atari, which has turned around into quite substantial profits and revenue this year, which is all good, seeing the modern-day Atari going from strength to strength, like I say, off the back of some rather wise business moves that have worked out quite well for them. And it looks like they are still continuing to acquire all sorts of different publishers and stuff. I missed the Crossy Road thing, I will say. I know that's quite huge. I've not played it myself. Yeah, who knows? Who knows where Atari will go next? But to be honest, as a lifelong Atari fan, I first discovered the brand all the way back in the late 80s when I was 5 or 6 years old. And of course, I went on to have the ST as a kid and follow the brand ever since. This is very, very good news indeed. Very welcome to see one of my favourite companies, and one with such a long and storied history, actually doing well for the first time in a very, very long time. What with me being somewhat British, I'm not quite sure if you've noticed that, but indeed, I can confirm that I am British, and this, by extension, being a somewhat British-leaning vintage and retro computing and gaming podcast, I, of course, find myself being regularly drawn towards those iconic British machines of the past. Offerings from the likes of Sinclair, Acorn, Amstrad, and the Dragon 32 from my ancestral homeland of Wales, to name but a few. And this next story is about the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, which I think, in my own personal belief, is perhaps the most important British machine of the 1980s, because it allowed a whole generation of people who previously wouldn't have been able to afford to have a computer at home to finally get their hands on one. And it's it came with quite a substantial basic programming manual that taught a whole generation to code, and I think it's fair to say that directly led to the UK being one of the world leaders in the world of game development, and that's something that still continues today. Surprisingly, actually. We've got Codemasters down the road, we've got Rare in the other direction, we've got Rockstar, of course, who make the Grand Theft Auto series, among many, many others. This release isn't quite on the scale of those, but it is for the original ZX Spectrum, and therefore I think it is worth a look, because it really does seem to push the limits of what was possible with that original hardware. And the Spectrum, quite famously, was a very, very limited machine, limited as far as graphics and sound were concerned, and that was, of course, because it was built to such a restrictive cost. So I think this one's worth checking out. Here's a story over on timeextension.com. The ZX Spectrum just got a colourful Pac-Man style game that you can play right now for free. A donation to a charity of your choosing is encouraged though. So if you do download this and you enjoy it, do go and make a donation to charity. You should be doing that anyway. A story here by Jack Yarwood. And this does come with a photosensitivity warning as well, that I'm not going to read word for word, but indeed, this game is probably best avoided if you are sensitive to that kind of thing, because there is an awful lot going on screen, and I do take these things seriously. And hey, the creator of the game has deemed it necessary to include that warning. So I will warn you when I'm about to hit play on the YouTube video, if you are watching this on YouTube, and then of course I'll let you know when it is safe to look back at the screen, because I'm nice like that. Anyway, let's continue with the story. I wasn't alive during the ZX Spectrum's heyday. Regardless, that hasn't stopped me from developing an appreciation for the iconic 80s microcomputer. Maybe it's a symptom of some inert national pride, or the fact I have older brothers, but every time I see a game featuring the Specky's unique colour capabilities, I feel an involuntary grin stretch across my face that would give even the big book of British smiles a run for its money. I do appreciate a Simpsons reference, although it is quite a painful one for us, I will say. I do spend a lot of time at the dentist trying to keep all of this in order. Anyway, understandably then, when I saw the new ZX Spectrum homebrew, Nightshift Skedaddle ZX, what a great name, earlier this week, thanks to the reporting of Indie Retro News and Saberman, with its rather lovely looking colours and its simple arcade-style gameplay, I immediately took a liking to it and wanted to take a closer look at the exciting release. Nightshift Skedaddle ZX is a sequel to 2025's Scrapyard Skedaddle, also for the ZX Spectrum, and also a great name, and is perhaps best described as a Pac-Man-esque maze game. Players take control of a cat named Willow, who finds her biscuit factory infested with troublesome rats. With her inventory now spread across the different conveyor belts, it falls to the feline to gather up the missing stock while avoiding the rats that are patrolling each floor. This is the video that was mentioned. And if you are prone to photosensitivity type things, please do look away now. I'm going to click play. So this shows the gameplay. Of course, we've got the loading screen in the background. To be fair, I don't know if the Spectrum is perhaps the best machine for you if you do suffer from such conditions. But anyway, let's just skip ahead to the gameplay. And look at this. I think the comparison to Pac-Man is kind of apt, but it is also selling this game short as well. And as someone who is familiar with the graphical capabilities of the Spectrum, obviously colour clash and all of the rest of it, I don't know how they've managed to achieve this. This doesn't look like any Spectrum game I've ever seen. This looks more like an Amstrad CPC game to me, or perhaps like an Atari 8-bit game or something like that. BBC Micro? Let's just name all of the 8-bit platforms. But this would have been very, very impressive indeed to see back in the day when the Spectrum was current. And I have no idea what's actually going on here gameplay-wise, but it does look very good. Anyway, I'm going to hit... where is the pause button on this video? There you go. I've hit pause on the video. It is safe to look back at the screen. The game is the work of the solo developer Mav the Rave, who was struck with the inspiration while working on the loading screen for SSZX1. It's created using Jonathan Caldwell's multi-platform arcade game designer tool for 8-bit computers, and is available for free for 48K Spectrums, with the creator simply asking you to make a donation to a charity of your choosing, or the Motor Neurone Disease Association. Great charity. As a graphic artist, in my younger days, I once again began on paper before starting the MPAGD coding, wrote Mav the Rave in the game's development blog, which I challenged myself to do without any assistance this time. Willow's movement was the only code partly carried over from the previous game, with a variety of changes to fit into the physics of the new playfield. Expert coder Maz's help from last year is therefore credited again in-game. There you go. They continued with the Spectrum's attribute clash, and without sprite masking or any coding skills for that matter, lol, the game I envisioned was quite a challenge to develop. Various solutions were needed to tackle the fact that multiple coloured characters would spend most of the game overlapped with background ladders. Instead of the usual approach to sprite inks, a more memory-intensive way of setting colours was used, and various ladder layouts, some short, some partial, some single-step, all with very wide rungs, were carefully balanced against horizontal space to minimise both the messy images caused by XOR, sprite and ladder overlap, and 2, the flicker introduced by the colouring tricks. The results are, of course, very far from perfect. I wouldn't sell yourself short. And apologies to anyone who finds the compromises I've made too distracting. I've tried my very best at it. I think that's all that counts, Mav the Rave. Good work. According to Mav the Rave, one of the major additions to the game, which is missing from its predecessor, is the magical item generator, which gives Willow blocks of cheese and rolling cookies to defend herself. This came about due to critical reviews of the first game that complained that the cat needs a weapon, and was inspired by the item block from Super Mario Kart. Want to give the game a spin? You can find the download here. Here, obviously, being my link down below, which I will include in the description, as I always do. And this is, I think, an appropriate time to mention that all of the stories that I talk about in these rambles are linked down in the description if you are watching this on YouTube, or indeed in the show notes if you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice. And indeed, it is hosted over on itch.io. We've got some hand-drawn graphics and sprites and level layouts and things here. Some character development stuff. That's a really interesting page in its own right as well. And a bit of an FAQ thing from the developer. So well worth checking out, even if you're not intending on playing the game. And it looks great. Don't sell yourself short. What was your name? Mav the Rave? I think it's a great effort. Now, if you will humour me for just a few minutes, I would like to take a moment to talk about one of my favourite games consoles of all time. And I say humour me because it may not be your favourite. In fact, I don't think it's many people's favourite. But I say this completely and utterly unironically, and I will explain in a moment, because I am talking about the Atari Jaguar. And yes, it is Jaguar, not Jaguar. I mean, we have the Jaguar car company here in the UK, so we invented the word. Yeah, it's in Warwickshire as well, isn't it? I never pondered before how Warwickshire seems to be the centre of the known universe. I'll have a think about that over the weekend. Anyway, that's quite the distraction. Yes, I'm talking about the Atari Jaguar, and as mentioned, I do think I need to explain that rather weird obsession, because I have the console, I have, pretty much all of the accessories for it, and getting on for the full game catalogue for it in my collection as well. But why? Well, when I was a kid, we used to get ST Format magazine every month, which was one of Future Publishing's monthly offerings covering various different platforms. There was ST Format, there was Amiga Format, and indeed they started off as the same magazine back in the mid-80s, ST Amiga Format, before they decided that there was enough going on in each platform's respective ecosystems so as to justify two separate publications. There was PC Format, which I think was the biggest and longest lived of those magazines, but anyway, I'm not here to talk about Future Publishing. I'm here to talk about the Jaguar. Now, as an impressionable young 7 or 8 year old with my Atari STE and my copy of ST Format in hand, of course, I used to flick through and see what other upcoming stuff Atari was pushing. And indeed, I think it was pushing because it was in ST Format's best interest, of course, to ensure the continued success of Atari by basically helping them out with marketing any old tat that they had coming down the pipeline, which included stuff like the Falcon 30 and indeed the Jaguar, among many, many others. And in my defence, as a kid, flicking through the magazine, you'd see screenshots of some of the rather more impressive 2D platformer games, stuff like Rayman and Bubsy, just static screenshots of those, and they look really impressive to a kid who was only used to playing on the Atari ST. But also the 3D stuff. We're talking about stuff like Club Drive and I guess to a lesser extent Tempest 2000, but Cybermorph as well. And I'm well aware that Club Drive was an absolutely abysmal game, but if you look at static screenshots of certain parts of it from certain angles at 8 years old, as someone who's not used to seeing 3D stuff, I guess it kind of looked like the future, and I thought it looked very impressive indeed. And I always really wanted one as a kid, and my parents quite wisely didn't buy me a Jag. Anyway, I did finally pick one up a few years ago, and the console is, it is what it is. It has its fair share of flops, but it does also have a few gems, a few diamonds in the rough. Obviously, we've got Tempest 2000, Alien vs Predator, you probably know the list by now. Those platformers that I mentioned, Bubsy and Rayman, they're very, very good takes on those games. Some good cross-platform stuff. And also, Wolfenstein 3D and Doom got very, very good ports on the Jaguar as well. So, a bit of a mixed bag. But it is a platform that has proved somewhat troublesome for homebrew developers over the years because, of course, when it was new, Atari didn't really document it very well and didn't really support its own developers very well, which, of course, was a big factor in Atari's downfall and the failure of the Jag at the time. And it is something that has proven to be very difficult to reverse engineer over the years. Although in recent years, we have had very good emulators in the form of Big PMU, which of course came out of the Atari 50th anniversary project, and also the Mr. Core more recently. And I think that has unlocked a lot of potential and a lot of possibilities for the homebrew community, who have, I think it's fair to say, kind of struggled up until this point. Now, somebody posted, getting to the point, oh wow, that was a long rambling intro, wasn't it? Somebody posted on my Discord server this week a video of a very, very interesting looking project on the Jag, because it is fully 3D and it does seem to run remarkably well. And that is quite rare in the, in the Jaguar world. Even at the time, with all the resources that those big developers had. So I think it is noteworthy. But also, it's a project that doesn't seem to be very well documented. So I had to go poking around and kind of looking for clues to see what it was all about. Which is to say that I have found this article on Time Extension, but it's a little bit old and a little bit out of date, but it does kind of serve as an introduction to the project. So this is by Jack Yarwood again, and this was the 21st of July. So it is a few weeks old now, but there has been a new update on this project, which I'll show to you in a second. So, This experiment is bringing a classic EA racer to the Atari Jaguar, and this is Need for Speed, which of course also was released on the PC, quite a big and popular franchise on the PC as well. But the 3DO was a very interesting platform in its own right, because it was a kind of an initiative by, I was going to say EA there, but it was actually EA's founder, Trip Hawkins. It was kind of a side project, and it was licensed to other manufacturers who incorporated the technology into like CD players at the time. A weird kind of 32-bit ARM-based platform, and never really took off. But again, quite an interesting thing in its own right. So yeah, what this developer has done, this developer called Budfolk, no less, has taken the 3DO version of the Need for Speed, the original game, and ported it in a somewhat competent way, by the looks of it, to the Atari Jaguar. So, a homebrew developer is working on bringing Electronic Arts' 1994 3DO racer The Need for Speed to the real Atari Jaguar hardware, in an experiment to see how far they can push the almost 33-year-old hardware. A good opening paragraph there. Budfolk is the developer of the Atari Jaguar homebrew game JagRacer, and this is quite important, but has recently picked up on the side project to test ideas, suggesting that the good stuff may find its way back into JagRacer at a later date. And there are indeed some videos of JagRacer over on Budfolk's YouTube channel, but here is the latest one from 4 weeks ago. And as you can see, it's got a rather nice kind of scrolling 3D track and landscape. We've got the textures, the signs and things popping in there, as we can see. There are some rather nice car sprites as well, although, of course, it is somewhat sprite-based. But a good start, and it is a game that is very much in development, and it does seem to be running quite smoothly as well, which I think is quite noteworthy. So that's that. Just going back to the story. A couple of days ago, the developer published a video of what they are calling a very early alpha. This showed the track and the in-car view running on the Jaguar emulator, Big PMU, without car physics, opponents, menus, or music. Regardless, it seems to have already generated some excitement online, with people praising the effort and wondering what a finished Jaguar version of the Need for Speed could look like. The Jaguar was never really known for smooth, textured 3D racing, Budfolk wrote in the video description, describing his reasons for taking on the project. So this is me trying to see how close I can get, rebuilt faithfully from the original game's own data. Everything here, the camera, the road, the scenery, is worked out from how the original 3DO game actually did it, not guessed. That's the whole point. Get it right, piece by piece. Despite the project still being in its early days, progress looks to be coming thick and fast, with Budfolk having already uploaded a second video showing an updated build, featuring the project's biggest FPS improvements so far. So, the Jaguar now overlaps more work, while the GPU and Blitter render one frame. The 68K already cools and prepares the next one, with the developer stating the next step could be using Jerry, one of the Jaguar's coprocessors, to transform and clip future geometry while the GPU keeps rendering. So, yeah, taking advantage of that custom Jag hardware in there. And the developer did go on at the time to say that they didn't actually have access to a real Atari Jaguar. But in the latest update, we can see that Budfolk has indeed acquired one, because we can see this loading from the Jaguar game drive, a rather excellent flash cart, and indeed the only kind of complete and working flash cart, which was also in its own right a very long time coming. You've got my lovely fitness suggestions here in the sidebar, by the way, as you can see. But this is the game. This is the Need for Speed 3DO port actually running on real Jag hardware. As we can see, it looks super smooth. We've got loads of sprites and things. We've got fences. We've got cows in the field. We've got trees. There's obviously we've got the landscape off in the distance, those mountains and clouds and things. We've got the full dash in kind of interior view of the car with the steering wheel and all the working gauges and things. It's Need for Speed. It's a very, very decent port, at least based on this video, of Need for Speed from the 3DO running on the Jag. And that is very impressive indeed. So, Budfolk, do keep up the good work. My hat is off to you for the first and perhaps the only time in this ramble. So quite the high accolade indeed. yeah, it looks great. I'm very much looking forward to seeing some kind of release off the back of this, if this is indeed the kind of long-term plan. And that's that. A port of the Need for Speed for the Atari Jaguar. And yeah, a developer actually kind of starting to dabble with and take advantage of the Jag's hardware and start to push it. And I think that is kind of starting to usher in a new era of Jaguar game development, where we start to see what the game console might have become had it had proper support back in the day. And that, my dearest ramblers, brings me around, of course, rather neatly to my regular Videos of the Week feature, wherein I feature a video, or indeed videos, that I have seen here on the old YouTubes in the past week that have entertained, educated, enlightened, or otherwise improved my life in some small way. Or indeed videos that I've been sent that I have added to my watch later list and haven't actually gotten around to checking out yet. But the one thing I can guarantee is that this week's selection is a rather mixed bag. I've got 5 videos for you, so I think without further ado, that's the first time I've said that this week. Without further ado, let's jump into these, and hopefully you will find something linked in the Videos of the Week section down below that tickles your fancy for the weekend. So first up, I want to talk about Bobby Fingers, and I'm going to hit pause on this because I'm not quite sure where he stands with regards to copyright and stuff, but there are quite a few people in my community who, it turns out, are huge fans of this channel, and I have been for a couple of years now. A friend of mine introduced me to it, and he is an insanely talented he makes these dioramas, and he is very, very talented as far as different arts and crafts things are concerned. So he builds things, designs it all himself, fabricates everything himself. You know, you've got various skills from painting to 3D modeling to even like soldering and welding and stuff, clay modeling. The guy does it all, and he is very, very good at all of it. But what stands out in these videos is his rather unhinged and bizarre sense of humour. And I can't really explain it. It's very dry. It goes off on all sorts of different tangents all the time. And if you haven't seen one of his videos, there is nothing like these out there. And trust me, well, I like them. And a lot of people I know like them. And I think you'll at least find them quite interesting. There's some bad language and stuff. There's some adult themes and stuff in there, which I do feel I should mention. This is no exception. He has built a diorama here of quite the famous moment from the lawsuit between Johnny Depp and his ex-wife Amber Heard a few years ago. It is a diorama of their bedroom and a certain thing that took place on their bed, allegedly. But yeah, it's a rather amusing video that goes off on all sorts of different tangents. And as per his other videos as well, there is a treasure hunt involved in this. So he has released his own wine called Toilet Wine. It's a 2021 Australian Shiraz that he has produced in collaboration with one of the top wineries in Australia. And the wine has a QR code on it, and that takes you to a secret video full of clues as to where he has buried this diorama. And he does this for every single video that he does. People decipher the clues, they go and dig them up, and then sometimes they sell them on eBay for tens of thousands of pounds. So bizarre community and ecosystem around this channel. But I love it. I love it all. And he only makes a video every kind of year or so and puts an insane amount of work into each one. So if you haven't discovered his channel yet, it's worth checking out. That's Bobby Fingers and Who Crapped on Johnny Depp's Bed. 35 minutes long. It's gripping viewing, I promise you. Anyway, the next video is a bit different. This is a Steam Machine teardown. Oh yes, I watched this just the other day, actually. This is Jerry Rig Everything. I do like his rather subdued, dulcet tones. I do quite enjoy his videos, and particularly his teardowns of things. But I thought this was interesting because it's the first time I've seen the insides of the Steam Machine. Of course, I've banged on about the Steam Machine for quite a few months now. And it is something that I have always wanted and kind of always aspired to own since it was first announced, being a big fan of Steam and PC gaming in particular, anything that Valve puts out. And yeah, I think what strikes me about this is just how clever the design is internally and how about 99% of the internals are just cooling. The rest of it is a very compact and very nicely designed laptop-esque motherboard. Also, how upgrading the RAM involves basically dismantling the entire machine and disconnecting all sorts of little fiddly ribbon cables and stuff, which does seem a bit of a bizarre choice on Valve's part, but I guess that was the only way they could make that possible. Other than that, doesn't seem like, other than RAM and storage, doesn't seem like an overly upgradable machine. So I do take back some of the speculation that I have, made in the past around that. And now I know, without having to buy one and take it apart myself. So that's the Steam Machine Teardown on Jerry Rig Everything, and he is also, quite impressed with the hardware and the design of the machine. So there you go. And here's a man who is not easily impressed. 6 minutes and 43 seconds, a nice quick watch for your tea break. Next up, we have the latest installment in CNC Dan's Space Cadet pinball machine. This is an ongoing build that I have been watching with great interest, and this is part 3. So I talked about this before when part 1 went out. I thought it was a very interesting build of a custom pinball table, lots of 3D printed and kind of fabricated parts to it, based on the iconic, of course, Windows XP Space Cadet pinball game. And it's just a really clever project. And, it's nice to see that his channel has grown so much off the back of it as well. And you don't often see a custom, fully from scratch pinball build as well. So it's kind of quite noteworthy in that respect. That is 17 minutes 49 seconds. CNC Dan, my Space Cadet pinball machine, finally has wormholes. So if you want to know what that's about, check out the link down in the description. Video number 4 for this week is... this was posted on my Discord, actually. I haven't watched this yet. But this is Sega Extreme Saturn Homebrew Showcase. And this is for the 31st anniversary of the Sega Saturn. And it's a console that I have quite a bit of interest in because I don't really have much experience of it hands-on. It's one of the ones I like to check out on my Mister multi-system, just because it isn't a system that I have any experience with. And it is quite interesting being sort of, is it fair to say, the first big 3D games console? Obviously, I mentioned the Jaguar earlier, but some rather bizarre entries in this homebrew competition. It's 41 minutes and 52 seconds, and if you want to see some of the crazy stuff that is happening in the world of the Sega Saturn, of course, we have some, there we go, we've got Flashback there, some ports of some well-known games from other platforms, but also some totally original and new and bizarre offerings. Yeah, you can go and check it out if you want to see what the Saturn is capable of. Very interesting system. And this is from a channel, I should also mention, called Pandemonium Reviews Every NTSCU Sega Saturn Game. So also, if you want to check out some reviews of Saturn games, that is what this channel covers as well, which is the other reason I wanted to bring it to your attention. So, go and check out some Saturn game reviews. Very interesting console. Something a little bit different. And finally, my 5th and final video, and I believe this was a recommendation from Steve's Tech Shed, who always posts interesting stuff. This is all about Windows NT, about the original release of Windows NT, and how it was basically built on a flexible architecture that allowed it to run programs from OS2 and POSIX, as well as Windows 32, of course, POSIX being the kind of Unix underlying architecture. I'm not explaining this very well, but if you want a better explanation from someone who is far better qualified than I am, check out this video, NT to Now, a relatively new channel with 9,000 subscribers. So, it's a very well-made video and, goes into a lot of technical detail about the underpinnings of Windows NT and some of the design decisions behind that. So, very interesting bit of Windows history. And also, it's 20 minutes long, which I think is quite a nice duration. If you're having a lunch break or whatever, you can stick it on and watch that at your leisure. So they are my 5 videos of the week. We've got Bobby Fingers, his diorama of Johnny Depp, and do check out his other videos because they are also very bizarre and have this whole universe of treasure hunting and stuff linked to them. Also his wine as well. I did actually buy some of the wine. I need to try that over the weekend and let you know how I get on with that. There's the second video, which was the Steam Machine Teardown from Jerry Rig Everything, 6 minutes 43 seconds. We've got the third part in the Space Cadet Pinball build from CNC Dan. That's 17 minutes 49. We've got this Sega Saturn homebrew showcase, if you want to check out what the very latest is from the homebrew scene on the Sega Saturn. And indeed, this channel that is reviewing all of the Sega Saturn games one by one. And finally, a rather interesting little video from NT to Now, all about Windows NT and its underlying architecture. That is quite a mixed bag this week, isn't it? But there you go. They're my videos of the week, and that is indeed this week's Ramble. So, yeah, I guess I should just say thank you ever so much for joining me. Of course, these Rambles go out every single week at 2 minutes to midnight UK time, both on my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rees Rambles, and also on the podcast platforms as well, Spotify and all of the others. If there's anything in this ramble that has taken your interest, please do check out the description down below and also the show notes on your podcast platform of choice. I should also mention, I always forget to mention this, but the descriptions and the links from these also go up on my website, ctrl-alt-rees.com. So that might be an easier option for you as well. The other thing that I also forget to mention every week is that if you do enjoy these rambles, you should probably subscribe to the channel. I hate these call to action things where YouTubers are like, oh, like and subscribe. But you know what? I haven't actually asked people to do that here on Rees Rambles for a very, very long time. You can subscribe in the podcast platforms as well. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, maybe subscribe on there as well. And then it will remind you to listen to me every week, if that's what you want. So there you go. And finally, I just have two other little things to show to you. I was going to mention these earlier on and they didn't really fit in anywhere and I don't really have a great deal to say about them, but they are Doom related. So of course, I do need to mention them. And they are things that I have pondered picking up for the Doom Shrine. My collection of Doom related releases and paraphernalia on the shelf behind me that starts with my original shareware release of Doom that came with our first family PC way back in 1994 and works its way all the way up to the modern Doom games, including Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. But not Doom the Dark Ages, but maybe that's about to change with one of these items. So the first one is a tabletop fire pit themed on Doom the Dark Ages, no less. And look at this thing. Isn't this cool? It's like a little metal fire pit, and you can put a candle in it or indeed a little outdoor eco burner thingy. Now, I appreciate that fire pits are usually something quite large that you gather all of your friends around to kind of keep warm as you sit outside in the winter months. I don't think this will quite have the same effect. But you know what? If I picked one of these up and the indoor candle for it, it might look quite nice on the shelf behind me, might it? I'd also be at risk of setting my studio on fire, so perhaps that's not quite so wise. But anyway, it's on sale. It was £115. It's now £46, which I think is an absolute bargain, actually. They're not paying me to push this to you. It just came up on my radar, and I really like the look of it. I like fire pits, and I like Doom. I don't need to justify it. The other thing that is perhaps less impressive is this golden floppy disk, a commemorative golden Doom floppy disk, which has gone up for pre-order, and they are $30 at GameStop. Now, I will say, they have released a, can you see that? You can see that. Oh, look, I'm doing the meme. That's what you get for sticking with this all the way to the end. The Doom, they have, of course, done limited edition metal Doom replica discs in the past. They don't actually work. They're not functioning floppy disks, but now they've done a gold-coloured one. Is it actual gold? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not all that interested, but there you go. Maybe they'll start popping up on eBay in a short while at a slight discount, and maybe then I'll start checking them out. But there you go. 2 Doom-related items for your very own Doom Shrine. But that really is all I have for you for this week's Ramble, so thank you ever so much once more for joining me. All that stuff still applies about where you can find this and when. I don't suppose I need to go over all of that again, so I think all that's left is to say a big thank you to my Discord community for supplying some or all of the stories that featured in this week's Ramble. You can join them down on the link down in the description. And that's pretty much all I've got for you. So that's that. Bye.